Today we're going to talk about the only two Gen Rush builds worth using. Before we hop into today's video, can we take a moment and really appreciate how good my game looks right now? If you haven't been a fan of the channel or been following me for like the last, I don't know, 6 months to a year, you'll notice that my pixelation as far as the hair on all my characters go has been completely off, and I've just ignored this issue for basically a whole year, and I accidentally fixed it the other day while I was trying to adjust some graphics card settings for Helldivers, but lo and behold, our game looks pretty damn good now, and our hair actually looks amazing. Also, side note guys, after 2.5 years of playing DBD, I have finally picked a main, and I guess it's going to be Kate. Not that I was on the mission to pick a main, but after like this skin and this outfit, I don't ever want to use any other character, and honestly I haven't really used any other character in months, so I guess it's safe to say that I'm probably a Kate main at this point. But the builds, guys, the only builds you want to be using when it comes to gen rushing. So here's the thing guys, the only toolbox, the best toolbox is the Commodious toolbox. This is 32 charges, increases your gen repair speed by 50%. Next patch is going to get even better because it will increase your sabotage speed by 50% as well. So these builds will actually be very versatile. Not only will you be able to gen rush with these builds, but you have the option and the capability to sabotage hooks and get saves that way with these builds as well, which is actually really freaking cool. So both of these builds are going to be featured around the same toolbox setup. Commodious toolbox, 32 charges, increases your repair speed by 50%. We're going to use wire spools for 12 extra charges and then scraps for another 8. So 20 extra charges on this toolbox. So we get this large toolbox that increases our gen speed by 50%, which feels amazing. The bread and butter of this build will be Built to Last. Built to Last is a Felix Richter perk where it activates whenever your item is out of charges. This works with toolboxes or medkits, any item really, but it's best with this toolbox setup in my opinion. Now, when you go in a locker, after 12 seconds, your depleted item will refill its charges. The first time, you'll get 99% of your charges back. The second time will be 33% less, so only 66%. And the last time, you'll get 33% of a toolbox back. So all in all, 33 plus 66 plus 99, that is basically 2 extra full uses out of your already big toolbox. Which in the course of a game, you probably won't even need that much toolbox charges, but there are some games where you actually do go through all of your toolbox charges, and those are the games where this build is really needed because you're playing against a lot of gen regression perks. I played against a Pinhead the other day who's rocking Jolt, Scorch Hook, Pain Res, probably even had Pop. Like the gens were just regressing left and right. And this build was probably the only reason me and one other guy got out of that trial is because we were able to actually get the gens done despite the massive amount of regression. Now, the second perk in this build is Streetwise. This perk is insane with this big toolbox because it reduces your item consumption rate by 25% and also applies to your allies within 8 meters of you if they have items as well. But the main reason is it reduces your toolbox charges by 25%, which makes this toolbox last for an insanely long time. I am not even joking, guys. This toolbox will literally last for days. And now the coolest thing about Streetwise, and actually something you could do if you have a buddy you want to play with and you both want to use this build, or God forbid it's a 4-stack all using this build, if all of you guys bring Streetwise, these perks stack with one another. So if you have 2 Streetwises, it's 50% less of your toolbox getting consumed. And honestly, that is more than enough. 3 would be disgusting. 4, I have never seen 4, but I'm sure 4 would be absolutely insane if you're all knocking out the same gen. Trust me, it's super fun. And if you have another buddy to bring Prove Thyself in as well for that extra 10%, we'll talk more about that here in a little bit. But Streetwise, bread and butter. So already we have a really solid gen rushing build. We have a long toolbox. We can get more charges from the toolbox. We can have the toolbox last for a long ass time with Streetwise. We're going to be getting these gens done no problem. This build gets even better because we're using Deja Vu. Deja Vu increases our gen speed by a further 6%, but will reveal the aura of the 3 generators closest together for the entire trial. So this lets us get straight to work. If it's an indoor map, an outdoor map, it doesn't matter. We're finding those gens super easily. We're going straight to work super easily. We're getting another 6% on top of our 50% repair speed. And when you do the 3 gens that are closest together, that will prevent you from what's called a 3-gen scenario. So the fact that this shows you the 3 gens that are closest together shows you the gens you need to prioritize getting done. A lot of times if you don't play with this perk, or if you're just on an indoor map and you're confused, those gens could be potentially the last gens left in a trial. And when they're the last gens left in a trial, you will lose the game because those are very easy for the killer to defend because they don't have to run too far between all the gens. But if you do the deja vu gens, you'll have an end game where all 3 gens are very far spread apart. So it's a lot easier for you to actually get the last gen done. Cannot preach this enough. And then the last perk, Sprint Burst. So why I like Sprint Burst with this build is because this build is basically a run and gun, no bullshit. We're just going to get these gens done, get in and get out, and get some dubs under our belt. I love Sprint Burst. One, you run 150% quicker for 3 seconds. So we're going to start the trial off. We're going to run straight for the deja vu gen. We're going to get to work. While we're working on that gen, we'll probably get our Sprint Burst back. If the killer comes up to us, we can have Sprint Burst to use and chase. It's just a very good build, perk that fits this build because whenever we finish a gen, we're going to Sprint Burst, we're going to run, find a locker, refill our toolbox, get on another gen, rinse and repeat until we get out of this trial. So now, I will give you some versatility here. If you are hardcore and crazy, you want to go completely balls deep in on the gen rushing, you do have the option for this last perk to actually use Prove Thyself. Prove Thyself is a noticeable mention here. Will increase your repair speed by 10% when you're working on gens with teammates. So if you do have a teammate who's working on the gen with you, you'll get an extra 10% as well, and they will also get a 10% bonus as well, which does shave off a few seconds on gens. Prove Thyself is still a pretty good perk. So I highly recommend it if you want to go 100% on the gen rush with this build, but I think Sprint Burst actually rounds things out very nicely because you have a little bit of a perk to help in chase as well as 3 perks that basically just help you knock out these gens ASAP. So now let's talk about our second gen rush build worth mentioning, and that is the built to last build. This is a build that is built to last, and it is honestly, it's like a perk roulette, not perk roulette, it's like a gen roulette kind of build. It makes doing generators feel like playing the slot machine at Las Vegas. It makes getting great skill checks feel super rewarding and super fun. So the setup, the same as usual. We have Commodity's Toolbox here. We have Built to Last. This is a staple in basically every Gen Rush build worth mentioning. Now you might be wondering, Sammy, there's another perk here called Scavenger. Why aren't you using that one? Let's pull it up. Scavenger. Scavenger, unfortunately, got gutted before it even released into the game, guys. Like when this perk came out, it was actually decent. It only required, I think, 4 great skill checks to have the perk activate. And it didn't have this huge penalty to your gen speed for like 30 seconds. I think there might have been some penalty, but it wasn't nearly as bad. The community freaked out and so many people cried about it while this perk was only in PTB, which is honestly a damn shame because then they gutted the perk to dirt and now it sees 0 play since it came out last year. And there's really no point in using it because there's no edge over this perk to Built to Last because of 2 things. One, you need your toolbox to be empty before you can use Scavenger. Okay, and then after your toolbox is already empty, you need to get 5 great skill checks to get this perk to activate. So not only does it take 5 great skill checks to activate this perk, which by the way, when you're doing a gen with extra speed, as in using a toolbox, you will get prompted for skill checks more often, but when you lose that extra speed, as in your toolbox is empty, you won't get the great skill checks nearly as often. So the premise of this perk is really dumb in that regards. 2, the amount of progress you will do on a gen working on it normally to get 5 great skill checks will probably end up finishing that gen anyway, so there's really no point in getting your toolbox after that, because maybe at best you'll get your toolbox back 1 time in a game. I have never seen this perk happen twice in a single match, so Built to Last kicks the shit out of this perk 100%. But then the worst part about Scavengers, not only do you have to get 5 great skill checks to get your toolbox back, when you succeed in getting your toolbox back, you're penalized for it by having your repair speed decreased by 50% for 30 seconds. Like, what the literal fuck, guys? Like, I have a perk that's super hard to get off because I need to get 5 great skill checks, and then I get a debuff just for getting for getting my toolbox back. This perk, like, they should have kept the original. I'm salty, I know, but it's because I want to see more builds and more varieties in this game. And they really gutted Scavenger when they had no business gutting Scavenger, and now it's just another essentially useless perk that there's no point in using because Built to Last is better in every single way. So, end Scavenger rant and why it's not in any of these builds. So now, we're moving on. So the whole point of this build is actually around great skill checks. Hyperfocus. Whenever you get a great skill check, and like we talked about earlier, when you're doing gens with your toolbox, you will get prompted for great skill checks more often, which gives you more chances to hit hyperfocus. And with practice, you can hit hyperfocus consistently. When you hit a great skill check, a couple things will happen. One, you'll have an increased chance of getting more great skill checks by 4%. You will have an increase in your skill check speed by 4%, which makes them a little harder to hit. But the bonus to generators that you get for hitting great skill checks, because if you hit a great skill check on a generator, you do get a little bit of a percentage bonus on that gen. That bonus increases by 30% of the base value per each stack you have to a max of 6 stacks. So this is really good. It makes hitting consecutive great skill checks feel really good. Like I said, it feels like playing the slot machines in Vegas. So it turns DBD into this mini game where we're doing gens and we're trying to get great skill checks, which is really fun, honestly, in itself. Now, a couple perks to round this build out. We have Stakeout, which every 15 seconds we're in the killer's terror radius will get us a token, and this token will convert a good skill check into a great skill check for us, and also give us a 1% extra bonus to generator repair speed progress. So Stakeout will guarantee us to have 4 maximum great skill checks if we do get 4 stacks of this, which is actually really easy. You play against something like a Wesker or somebody with a huge terror radius, you're getting your Stakeout stacks super easily. So you're guaranteed basically 4 great skill checks. But what I like to do is I try to hit my great skill checks, and if I miss them, I end up just getting a good skill check. We got Stakeout to cover for us, so we can try to build up to that 6%, to that 6 stacks as soon as possible to get more of the gen done as quick as possible. But now the last part of this build that I really like is Fogwise. It fits with this build. It's like PB&J. It's like bread and butter. Fogwise just really fits with the theme of this build because basically we're sitting on our gen, we're doing slot machines, we're sitting on our ass, but when we get a great skill check, which Stakeout gives us great skill checks and Hyperfocus activates when we get great skill checks, but Fogwise will also activate when we get great skill checks, we'll see the killer's aura for 6 seconds. So this turns DBD into kind of like this slot machine Vegas movie simulation. We're just doing the gen, we're getting our great skill checks, which feels good, which means we're doing the gen even quicker. But every time we get a great skill check, we also get Fogwise, which gives us intel of the killer, which lets us keep tabs on where the killer's at. We can see what the killer's doing. It kind of makes DBD feel like a movie at times, especially if you're getting these great skill checks back to back to back, which does happen. You're basically just watching the killer the whole time, like DBD is basically a movie, and it helps you feel very safe while you're working on your generators in the first place. So these are the 2 builds I would recommend for gen rushing, guys. We have option A here, built to last, Hyperfocus, Stakeout, and Fogwise. When we have option B here, built to last, Streetwise, Deja Vu, Sprint Burst. If you have a friend with Streetwise, very good. You can sub that out for Prove Thyself if you want. Or you can make a hybrid of both of these builds and do something like built to last with Streetwise and Stakeout and Hyperfocus, and you'd still have a lot of fun with that as well. But besides that, guys, there's some other perks that affect gen speed, but there's really nothing out of all of these perks that's too impactful. When it comes to gen rushing and getting gens done, like God forbid, don't even touch Scavenger. Just complain on the forums about it so we can get it reworked into something useful that we can use for a different kind of build. But that's it, guys. There's really nothing else you should be using as far as perks and setups when it comes to gen rushing a DBD. This will get you the most time off your gens, and these will give you the most consistent games. And after the next patch, when the Commodious Toolbox is actually going to get a little buff to sabotage speeds, this build will not only be good for doing gens, both of these builds, but also for sabotaging hooks and actually saving your teammates. So it gives you a little bit more versatility to an already amazing objective-focused loadout. If you enjoyed this video, please smash the like button, comment down below, and let me know what you think is your favorite build. And until next time, I will see you guys on the next one. And subscribe if you want to stay up to date with all the top builds and perks for DBD, because that is what we're all about, baby. Love ya. See you on the next one. Don't forget to smile. I'm out.